Welcome to Retiring Well, where it's our job to help you enjoy financial security in any economy. I'm your host, Michael Reese, and I am really excited about today's show. We're going to talk about how winning at poker is the same thing as winning with your retirement investments. I know, pretty interesting, right? You're going to love it. Now, let's meet our co-hosts.
In Birmingham, Alabama, this is Chartered Retirement Planning Counselor and your retirement planning specialist, Tad Hill.
Retiring Well with Michael Reese, providing financial security in any economy. Today is the day you can take control of your financial future and eliminate worrying about your money forever. Featuring Chartered Retirement Planning Counselor Tad Hill, founder of Freedom Financial Group in Birmingham.
So is winning at poker pretty much the same thing as winning with your retirement planning? Well, guess what? I think that there are a lot of parallels there. And I know what you're thinking. You're sitting there, you're thinking, well, wait a minute, poker is gambling and the show is supposed to be about being secure in any economy. These are two extremes. Well, slow down, take a minute, and just open your mind and let me share with you what I'm talking about here. When I talk about winning at poker, I'm not talking about the, hey, let's go to our friend's house or let's go for a night at the casino and play a little poker and just kind of mess around. What I'm referring to are your big time serious poker players. Now, if you look at your top poker players, to them, it's not gambling at all. To them, the game of poker is all about strategy, statistics, and about human behavior. So those three things. And if you watch these guys in a poker tournament, and I know that it's really popular these days. You can almost turn on ESPN or NBC Sports or any of these stations. At some point, you can probably watch some of these guys play poker. And whenever you watch them on TV, it seems like they're playing every hand. But in reality, when they're playing big-time tournaments and they're doing their job, which is being a professional poker player, you find a number of parallels with what they do and successful retirement planning. So here's the first one. Number one, they're very conservative. You can sit there, if you were to watch them, they might go an hour without playing a single hand. They are very conservative. They wait for the right opportunities to come along. And that brings up number two. They are very, very, very concerned about protecting their stack. Just like with your retirement planning, you want to protect what you have. Well, they protect their stack. They do not risk their money unless, or their chips, if you will, unless there's a really solid opportunity. And number three, they're really focusing all along the way on steady growth. Now, hey, they will find that they might go for an hour and really make nothing because they haven't played a hand. They're waiting for the right opportunities. They might find that in an hour they double up because they happen to get really lucky and they had the right cards against another person's right cards. It just worked out. But for the most part, they're conservative. They wait for their spots. They are worried about protecting their stack. They don't want to go backwards. And they want to accumulate their stack at a steady rate. Well, doesn't that sound a lot like how you should handle retirement planning? I mean, you want to be conservative, you want to protect your money, you want to have steady growth. Those are the three ingredients that make up for a successful retirement plan. Yet, what do we see out there all the time? People who are out there, they either A, they're not conservative, B, they don't protect their stacks or they don't protect their hard-earned assets, and C, they're not looking for steady growth, they're looking for big growth. What you have is, you have people who fail in retirement because they are being too aggressive. They're just, taking too much risk. They're not worried about protecting their stack. Successful poker players know that to win poker tournaments, to win at poker on a regular basis, they know that they have to act with their poker chips as though it is their retirement nest egg. And holy cow, who would have ever thought that those two would have been related? All right, I thought that was kind of interesting. Now what I want to do is I want to bring in our co-hosts, and they are going to share with you some different ways that people in your area have maybe messed this up.
Well, Mike, there are a few key concepts here that you hit on. Poker is much like retirement planning in the sense that when we've got that stack of chips, that's all we're ever going to have. You know, I've said several times on this show, once you retire, unless you're going to inherit a lot of money, you've got all the money you're ever going to have. So the focus is critical that it shifts to protecting your life savings. Now, the other thing you touched on was human emotion, watching people's reactions. Investing can be a very emotional topic, particularly once we're retired, because it's one thing to feel like we're losing all our chips when we're 30 years old, and we know if we just keep playing, we can build them back. It's a very different thing when we're retired and we don't have 30 or 40 years to go make our nest egg back again. And now we are relying on our savings, our chips, if you will, to provide us with an income. So the shift needs to really go from gambling to protecting what we've spent our life saving and generating income from it. So when we talk about some of the mistakes that get made, the biggest mistake that I see is that folks are still invested like they have a 30 or 40 year time horizon before they need to start pulling from the money. Because how we invest our dollars when we're working and we're accumulating our wealth is almost a complete 180 from what we need once we retire. We need to start generating a paycheck. We have to replace our paycheck with our retirement savings. So we need to invest in a way where we can get steady income. Now, there are a handful of ways to do that, but one of the ways we don't want to do that is by relying on the stock market to go up every year. Nothing wrong with having some of our money earmarked to growth investments, but if we're going to be in any kind of markets, we need to make sure that we're generating enough yield. This is one of the things that I see. We're going to talk about this later in the show on my story of the week, how many folks need a certain amount of income from their portfolio, but they aren't actually generating that much through the way they have their money invested. They are needing their investments to go up every year to generate the income. That's the biggest thing that I see. So it's really important that we aren't gambling with our life savings, that we're being very conservative, that we keep our emotions in check. And one of the ways that we need to keep our emotions in check is by not going all in with our life savings. We don't want to have too much risk in our retirement portfolio, because when we see our retirement portfolio go down by 20-30%, our emotions tend to take over. So that's what our retirement planning process does. We sit down with you and we go through what are all the things that we need to do to protect our life savings and generate income in a way that's secure and predictable. How do we make sure that we've got our investments categorized so that we do have growth capability with a good chunk of our money, but we've also got money that we can rely on paying the bills? How do we make sure that we're as tax efficient as possible? That's what our retirement roadmap review process does. If you're watching this and you want to know for yourself from a retirement planning specialist, what do I need? How do I make sure I'm not gambling my retirement? How do I make sure I've got the right plan in place? It's about more than just investing your money. It's about really understanding all the moving parts in retirement planning. Give the number on the screen a call and I'll sit down, no cost, no obligation, and do my retirement roadmap review for you. Just give us a call and we'll be happy to do that.
As you can see, people make mistakes with their retirement planning and they don't follow the great rules of poker players, at least the exceptional ones. You don't want to be like that. You want to make sure that you enjoy a safe and comfortable retirement. Take advantage. Call the number on the screen, talk to these guys. I promise you'll be glad you did. Now, I don't want you going anywhere because coming up, we're going to have a terrific question of the week.
Let's talk about ways to protect your principal that have the potential to earn a decent return. Many of you want your money to be protected. That makes a lot of sense in today's unsettled economy. But it's difficult these days to find a place that pays you a reasonable amount of interest. It's frustrating. That's where we come in.
Ways to protect your principal with the potential to earn a decent return are available if you know where to look. We evaluate them every day.
It's one more reason that now more than ever, you need to talk to a retirement planning specialist. Why not call the number on your screen right now? We'd love to talk to you about protecting your retirement.
Hi, Michael Reese here, and you know what I found is in that critical period, the 5 years before retirement, all the way to the 5 years after retirement, in that 10-year period, I find that over and over again, Americans are making mistakes with their financial planning that, quite frankly, are easily avoided. And it really almost breaks my heart, because if you make little mistakes in this period of time, you can have huge consequences. So in order to help you not make those mistakes, I've put together a simple website with some free videos from me to you to help you be smart about your planning. The website is called 3mistakes.com. It's the number 3 spelled out, T-H-R-E-E, 3mistakes.com. Why don't you go there today? Welcome back. It's time for our question of the week.
This week's question comes from Jennifer from Forestdale, Alabama, who asks, what options are out there right now to get a decent return on safer types of accounts? And what is a realistic rate of return to expect from safer accounts?
Well, Jennifer, first we have to define what we mean by safer. So let me be very clear about this. There is nowhere we can put your money where we're not taking some kind of risk. If we take all your money and put it in a safe in the basement, are we taking any kind of risk? We are. We're taking opportunity risk because we're losing opportunity to earn money on the money. We're taking inflation risk because at historical rates of inflation, 10 years from now, that money's going to be worth a third less. So $6.50 for every $10 that we put in that safe in the basement. So there are other places we can put money. We can put money in CDs, and I think that's the question really. CDs aren't earning much right now. So where are some places that we can still have a reasonable expectation of maintaining our principal but still get a decent rate of return? There are a couple ways to do that. One is we've got a short-term ETF that operates a lot like a money market, but it's not exactly the same. It's very, very short-term bonds, and it's yielding about 2% right now. So it is a very conservative place to put your money and still get a rate of return that you can get over and above a CD. If we are needing the money for income, a lot of times what we want for some of your dollars is to create a lifetime income with it. There are certain types of fixed annuities you can use that you can put an income rider on, and that income rider will grow at anywhere from 5 to 7% compounded for a period of time as long as you're in deferral until you turn on that income. So once the income's turned on, it's a level payout. It's like a pension. So it's not like we're getting 5 or 7% fixed that we can then walk away with. It's more to grow an account that we can turn into a paycheck. But what we need in retirement oftentimes is income. So depending on what we need the money for, that might be an option. Interest rates are going up a little bit. I'm a fan of some high yield bond ETFs because with spreads narrowing as interest rates start to rise, I think high yield areas have maybe a little less downward potential than some other bond holdings. We're going to talk about bonds next week. We have to be very careful with bonds, but those are just some of the areas that we can look to try and get decent returns on our conservative money.
Do you want your question answered on Retiring Well? Send us an email to question@retiringwell.tv.
This week on Chalk Talk, we are once again bringing in tax specialist and my good friend, Larry Flynn.
Hi, Larry Flynn. Listen, today I want to talk to you about Roth conversions. You've heard the advantages of Roths. You get tax-deferred growth and you get tax-free income when you pull it out, right? But today I want to talk to you more about whether or not you are a candidate to convert your IRA to a Roth, where it may or may not make sense, okay? Listen, when we're doing tax planning, it's nice to have some money in which I can draw upon that's not taxable. If all I have is IRA money and then I got my pensions and Social Security, I've got no control over my taxation. So it's imperative that you get with your retirement planning specialist to decide, to look at this in really almost every year just to see if this applies to you, if it's a good idea or not. But here's the best way I would maybe look at it. You've got your IRA, and you got a partner in that IRA whether you knew it or not. It's Uncle Sam or the state in which you live in, right? And let's say I wanted to convert that whole IRA to a Roth all in one fell swoop. And I got with my tax planning guy and I said, what's that going to cost me if I just want to do that? And let's say they figured it would be 33 cents on the dollar to buy out Uncle Sam in the state in which I live in out of my IRA and turn that into a Roth, right? But what if I'd want to maybe look at that, but I also want to compare that with what is it going to look like if I do it over time? All right, I got my IRA. Eventually, I'm going to have to take my required minimum distributions. What would that look like in the taxes? I'd look at them in today's tax rates, and they do the analysis, and they come up with, let's say, 30 cents on the dollar. Well, at first glance, you might look at that and you'd say, well, listen, it's going to cost me much more doing it all now, doing a Roth conversion, than it would be over time. Maybe I might not do that. But what if I suspected income tax rates might rise in the future? Well, that would be maybe one incentive, maybe more than 3%, to do that now, right? Another thing you got to look at is, once this is a Roth, guess what? It's growing tax-free now, tax-deferred, I should say. That 60, or let's say 67 cents on the dollar is now growing tax-deferred. Eventually is going to grow to a higher number and is going to be, a much bigger pot than we're looking at today. So you have to kind of figure in the time value of money in this too. But at the very least, what you're going to want to do is get with your retirement planning specialist or your tax advisor and say, hey, let's take a look at this. I'd like to see what that looks like. Well, anyway, I hope this was of value. Thanks a lot.
You've worked your entire life to become financially secure so you can enjoy a comfortable retirement. But when you get there, what's next? Wall Street and the financial media flood the airwaves with information about what you should and shouldn't do. But who are they working for? Who can you trust?
For the past 17 years, I've focused on helping people just like you protect and preserve their retirement security. And during that time, I've identified 7 different lies, each with the potential to destroy the security that you've worked so hard to build. I believe that you deserve to know the truth. And so I've built a website that hosts a series of videos that's free of charge that you can watch in the comfort and safety of your own home.
You don't want to miss out on these powerful videos that shine the light of truth on what can be a confusing topic. Why don't you go there now? It's absolutely free, and you'll be glad you did. www.retirementincomelines.com. You deserve to know the truth. Let's talk about retirement income. Studies show that a large number of retirees are worried about running out of money. Broken promises from banks, Wall Street, and the folks in Washington, D.C. may have you worried about your own retirement security.
Having a predictable income stream is a key ingredient to protecting your retirement. One potential way to do that is to have your income stream based on math and not markets.
It's one more reason that now, more than ever, you need to talk to a retirement planning specialist. Why not call the number on your screen right now? We'd love to talk to you about protecting your retirement.
Okay, Birmingham, it's time for our retirement story of the week. And since the topic this week is how is retirement planning like playing poker, I want to give you an example of Sam and Trish. Sam and Trish came to see me a couple of years ago. This has been a little while ago, but I think their circumstance plays really well with this week's topic. Sam and Trish came in, and Sam was a risk taker. Trish really wanted to protect their nest egg. She was very concerned about running out of money. She had grown up really poor in a rural part of the state and literally had nothing growing up, and was very concerned about ending up being back in that place. So she was very conservative, very concerned about protecting her life savings. Sam, on the other hand, was more freewheeling. He was willing to go to Vegas with their life savings. Now, that had been the case prior to 2008. And what had happened was they had retired before then. So they had retired in like 2006, 2007. She retired first and then him. And what happened was they went through 2008, and Sam had told his broker, hey, I don't mind a little risk reward, no pain, no gain, right? So he had constructed a portfolio that was probably a little more on the aggressive end of moderate than he realized. This is very common. It's very common that you've got more risk in your portfolio than you realize you've got. Here's one test you can take to figure that out. When the market went down 48% in 2008, you were aware, hey, the market's down 48%. But were you surprised at how far you were down? What I hear a lot from people is, well, I know the market was down 48%, but I was really surprised that I was down 35 or 40, almost right along with it, because I had told my broker, I don't want to take a lot of risk. So really, in my mind, I thought maybe 15%, 20% on the high end was worst case. Then all of a sudden, I was down 37%. I was very surprised by that. That's a great indicator that there's more risk in your portfolio than you realize. So I think this was the case with Sam. They went through 2008. Guess what happened? Trish's worst fear was realized. They lost almost half of their life savings. And when they came to me a couple of years ago, Sam said, you know, I learned a very valuable lesson. If that had happened to me back in the early 90s, I would not have really worried about that. I really didn't mind losing money. My belief was always, well, hey, we'll just hang in there and get it back. But something happens to your emotions when you retire. I see this over and over and over. Your tolerance for risk really gets reduced. So it's one thing to have to lose money when you've got a paycheck coming in and you got a 10-year window before you retire. But once you've retired, a shift takes place, and watching that money drop really becomes a problem. So they came in and Sam said, okay, Uncle, we need to fix this. So we put a portfolio together for them in our conservative income portfolio that has done a phenomenal job over the last decade or more of really protecting our clients' money, but doing it in a way that's completely liquid, so it's in a market-based account. So we were able to put together a portfolio for them that gave her the sense of safety that she needed, but still allowed us to get a decent opportunity for growth. So they walked away feeling like for the first time they had a plan that suited them both. If you want the same thing, that type of plan for you, give us a call. I'll be willing to set aside time on my calendar to help you do exactly that.
You know I love those stories, and folks, here is another example. We have them every week of how important it is to visit with a retirement planning specialist. I recommend that you take the time to visit with a true retirement planning specialist. Just call the number on the screen. You have the opportunity. It's free. There's no obligation. I really can't understand why you wouldn't want to take advantage of that. Okay. To wrap up our show this week, it's time to turn the page and take a look at yet another IRA blow-up. This week's IRA blow-up is one of my favorite stories. I've shared this blow-up in the past, but it might have been about a year ago, so I'm going to share it again. And it is the story of the Friedmans. And this came out of the New York Times. The title of the article, Pension Pickle, Broke Widower Loses $1 million to in-law. All right, let me share with you this story because this is a classic example of how a tiny little mistake can create enormous complications if you don't know what you're doing. Retirement plans, we think they're simple, but they can be really complicated, in practice anyway. So here we go. We have the story here of the Friedmans in New York, a Brooklyn, New York couple, and what happened is this. The gal died first, which I know hardly ever happens, but she did. And so the gal, Susan, started out as a teacher, and this is before she met her husband. She starts out as a teacher, and she has a retirement plan that she starts contributing to. So she's doing exactly what she's supposed to do. She's single, she's not married, no kids, none of that kind of stuff. So she names her sister as the beneficiary. Actually, she named her parents and her sister equally, but her parents had since passed away, so her sister was the only remaining beneficiary. Anyway, she gets married, and she and her husband, Bruce, are married for like 43 years, and then she dies. Well, problem is this. At no point during her lifetime did she change the beneficiary arrangement on her retirement plan. She had accumulated over $1 million in her retirement plan as a school teacher, and clearly expected her husband to be the beneficiary, but her sister was listed as beneficiary. Actually, remember what did I say? Her parents and her sister, but again, her parents had predeceased her, so then when she died, the plan said her sister gets the money. Well, as it turns out, Bruce, her husband, and her sister, who went nameless, they didn't get along. And so what happens is the retirement plan pays the money to the sister. Well, Bruce says, no, that's not the way it should be. It's supposed to go to me. I'm the husband, and lawsuits ensue. And after 3-4 years of lawsuits, what happens? The court ruled that the money goes to the sister even though Susan was married to Bruce. The sister gets the money. Bruce is disinherited. That's not at all what they were intending to have happen. It's just the way it worked. Now, what's interesting is if this were an ERISA plan, which is like a 401k plan, it would have gone to Bruce anyway because the spouse gets the money. But in a non-ERISA plan, beneficiary rules. Small distinction, but it was $1 million mistake. That's our IRA blow up. I hope you've learned from it. That's our show. Have a great weekend, everyone.